Welcome to our special Can Be Well event. This is Burnout, Finding Your Tools to Thrive, and I'd like to introduce you to Natascha Polomski, who will be our host for this. And Natascha is our longtime board member, as well as treasurer and bookkeeper. Some very big jobs that she does with Can Be Well. I'm your host for today, Michelle Greenwell, and I'm the current president of Can Be Well. Before we begin today, let's open with a land acknowledgement and introduction of who is here today. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we're on today. And while we meet today on a virtual platform, if we just take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands within which each of us calls home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to educate our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. So we have a small group gathered. We have more that will be watching the recording. So as you're thinking about where you live and the name of the land upon which you reside, I will share with you mine. So I'm Michelle Greenwell. I live in Mi'kma'ki and Maliseet with the Maliseet people on Unama'ki, or in Mabu, Cape Breton Island, and I'm a fourth generation Canadian. All right. Our intention for today is to provide a platform for our members to be highlighted within our membership. And as avid members of Can Be Well, we all play a vital role in developing and sharing the power of our knowledge in a collaborative atmosphere for others to grow and learn from. So now I want to introduce Natascha and some of her accolades. Natascha is a student at Akamai University. She is almost done her master's program in bioenergetic wellness. Originally trained in Ayurvedic methodologies in Germany, she is also trained in the use of therapeutic singing bowls by Peter Hess. A Touch for Health student and a Therapeutic Touch registered practitioner, she actually leads a regular practice group for Therapeutic Touch in Port Hawkesbury, which she has done for well over a decade. And that's here on Cape Breton Island. Originally part of the Intend to Radiate Teas, Natascha won an award from Can Be Well for her development of the Teas with Intentions and 5-element theory. That's something that her and I shared as a partnership. She also won an award for her role in the publication of the Can Be Well free ebook, which is on our website, called Bioenergetic Essentials. She also won for Self-Care Essentials for Educators. And Natascha is currently focusing on supporting people with burnout, and that's our topic for tonight. She won an award, the Legacy Leadership Award with Can Be Well for her publication on this, and you can find it on Amazon, Resilience in Chaos, a guide for emergency professionals to conquer stress and burnout. Natascha, we want to thank you for taking the time to do this fundraising event for Can Be Well and for the partners and affiliates that will have access to it. And we appreciate your endeavor to bring the knowledge of burnout forward and to really talk about a topic that is so important in today's day and age. I'm just going to say that Natascha can be found at turnupthefrequency.com. So that's how you can connect with her. And Natascha, take it away.
Thanks, Michelle. Yes, burnout is dear to my heart as I'm a burnout survivor of more than 25 years. And I'm sorry for my voice. That's very raspy today. I don't know why. So the fun part is that people always say burnout is just work related, or for most people, it's still considered that. But burnout and stress doesn't just come from work. It comes from everything in your life. So if you look at your relations, if you look at the things that happen in your life, everything, anytime, and everywhere, somebody places expectations towards you that you can't fulfill, you're put in stress. I know from my own experience that I tried to give 150%. That was not possible, and most times it was not appreciated. And that then led to more burnout, more depression, and all of that. Like the whole thing is so sneaky and so much a devil's circle that it's not fun anymore. But again, burnout in relationships is underrated. First of all, there is the thing that burnout and stress will influence your relationship. They will influence any way that you work with others, that you communicate with others, because when you're in stress, you are in fight or flight. You're just in a position where you try to keep yourself, or your brain tries to keep yourself safe, and you won't be able to really accommodate others. But the other thing is then also that there's relationship burnout, because you can burn out in a relationship when you don't see the signs. And I'm not diving too deep into that. There's a newsletter online on my website on all kinds of causes of relationship burnout and so on. But what I want to do today is give you a little bit of an overview of types of relationship stress and how they manifest. So there is, first of all, communication stress. Poor communication leads to misunderstandings and often a lack of an effective dialogue. So you're talking to the person that is dear to you, that you love, that you are living with, and they don't understand you, or you don't understand them. And that will create friction. And it will create emotions to go into a way that there's hurt, and people feel like put down, left out, whatever. All of those will tie into that. The next one is emotional stress underneath. Again, if your emotional needs like a hug or somebody telling you that you've done well, all of those things, if they don't happen, will lead to stress again. And they will lead to resentment and loneliness being in a relationship. Frequent arguments, conflicts is the next part. So if you're constantly arguing, if your values are different, and you're not willing to compromise or agree that you don't agree, you're creating stress and friction. Financial stress, there's not much to say about that because everybody knows that. In a relationship, if one person makes the decisions and the other doesn't agree, or if one person makes the decision and doesn't ask the others to get their opinion and they have a common ground, all of that are just common sense parts of stress. But if they accumulate over time, they will lead to burnout. And they can happen more often when you're already stressed or when you're already in burnout. Trust and betrayal, infidelity, dishonesty, broken promises, all of that. Intimacy. So if somebody has different emotional intimacy needs and they are never fulfilled, again, expectations are a big part of what causes stress and burnout. Expectations that others have of you or that you think others have of you. It's not always that people really think of us the way that we think they do, but just that part of we think we know what the other things is not really helping us. Then there's external stressors like work pressure, family expectations, social obligations, health issues. All of those can contribute in a big way to what's happening in your relationship and to create more stress and burnout. Life changes, moving, career shifts, having children, anything, anytime you bring in something new and both partners are not at the same like at the same level, again, you're working not with each other most times, but you're working against each other often. Time management stress. If somebody always puts their work first, not the family, if he's expected to bring the family first and he does it not, again, all of that creates disruption and friction between partners. And basically, relationship doesn't just mean a partner, like a romantic partner relationship. It means any kind of relationship that you have with another person. The last part is codependency or independency. Both can lead to the other partner being totally overwhelmed, either by having to be there for the other person all the time and making sure that the other person is being safe and kept in a space that they need to be comfortable, or by being totally neglected by a person that is completely independent and not paying attention to yours. All of those intermingle, and all of those in some way tie into the same factors, but all together bring little bits and pieces in everyday life, creating friction, creating stress, creating depression, and so on. So relationship facts, or relationship stress facts, relationships can be significantly impacted by burnout and stress. Relationships can contribute significantly to burnout and stress, and relationships can cause burnout. Managing relationships is crucial for overall well-being, and a stable and nurturing relationship is the best support system that you can have when you're in burnout, because there's somebody who takes care of you and keeps you in a boundary that's good for you, because we tend to go everywhere and nowhere with the burnout. So, strategy one, we have 5 strategies. Strategy one is communicate openly, because an open communication is vital no matter what relationship you're in. And an honest communication will prevent misunderstandings and foster trust. I love that saying: the single best problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. How often do we do that? That we actually think we've communicated clear and try to put out the words, and the other person hears nothing, doesn't comprehend anything, and we don't realize it until all hell breaks loose. I would like to do a little exercise, if Michelle and Helga will participate and come online, show their faces. So the exercise is really easy. I have one is a physical, and I have one which is a mental exercise. For now, I would like just to do the mental exercise. Just think, close your eyes and think back, feel into your body for a second. Are you tense? Are you okay? Are you comfortable? I want you to think back the last time you had a conversation that went completely wrong. Can be with friends, can be with partners, can be with kids. Just think about a situation when everything went completely wrong. Feel into your body and ask your body to show you where the stress in that situation was. Where is the tension? Is it in the neck? Is it neck? Is it in your jaw? Is it in your arms? And then think about what went wrong in that conversation. Was that conflict resolved? Are you still in stress and holding on to the emotion that was in that conversation? Or were you able to let that go, and now looking back at it, you can say, this is where we went wrong, and how does that feel in your body? And when you are able and ready, I would like from you to hear from you.
Well, I ended up with shallow breathing. I didn't notice my neck till you said neck, and then I realized it was tight. And most of it showed up in the lower abdomen.
Mm-hmm. So that not in your belly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not in the stomach. Lower intestines.
Mhm. And were you able to resolve that?
Well, when you said, how do we resolve it? So, no, I didn't resolve it. But you said, how do we resolve it? And the question, how do we resolve it, relaxed everything. So that was interesting.
Hmm. The funny part is there's always two to a dance, and we can't expect the other one to take all the blame. If we are able to see where we are emotional or stress wise, it gives us the chance to take a step back and accommodate the other person a little bit better. Same thing if I realize that you are in stress and I hammer down on you because I want to make my point and I'm right. It's my point and I have to make it. I'm not helping the situation. I'm not really contributing to the situation. Actually, I'm contributing in a way worse way. But if I can take that step back, and that's the mental, the physical exercise, is to think about that situation when you're standing, and then in your mind go I or physically go a step back and open up and breathe, and then think about the situation, and then you might see things differently when you do that if you're still stuck in that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
If you were able to see afterwards what was going wrong, or during your conversation, you're already a step ahead, because often things like that will not be resolved because we're so stuck in that I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I've been there. I've been called stubborn, and Michelle has seen that happen. I'd say, put my foot down. I have to be right. But these days, I just realize I have my feelings that make my conversation or color my conversation in a certain way, and they have their emotions and their lens that's coloring theirs, and neither has to be the same. But if we're not seeing that we're already blocking the other person by not being aware and not communicating openly and not listening openly, and that's the next part, we're already creating a block that cannot be overcome, and that creates more stress. Helgar, did I take anything away from you?
No. So I wasn't in a situation where I was listening and I misunderstood, and my anger came out of my solar plexus so strong. So I stepped back a step because I didn't want to go against this person. I had some breathings, and then we could discuss what was said and what I had understood. So yeah,
I find
it was good.
one of the easiest ways you can prevent that, to make the communication open. So first of all, be honest. You or yourself, be honest. But also make sure that you hear the other person correctly, or that you're heard correctly. And that can only be achieved by like repeat what you heard. So I do that when I have an argument with somebody. I go, from what you told me, I heard. And then I tell them what I understood, right? But I also ask other people when we're in this situation, can you please repeat to me what you heard from what I said? Because that opens then the discussion and the way that we can openly talk. Um, Another part is, don't hold back when something's bothering you. You don't have to be offensive, but bring it to the table and honestly say, this is bugging me, right? Because how does the other person know that you are influenced by what you're saying or what is said?
Yeah, but
So
if you are in this situation so angry, when the anger comes out of your stomach and goes up, I think it shouldn't come out of the mouth, because the other person just surprised because the other
no,
person didn't know.
you should take a breath and then start talking.
Exactly.
But the
Yeah.
thing is, if you always hold back and um not to point fingers, I don't want to do that. Germans are very blunt. Canadians are very polite.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have a Canadian say to my face, this is bugging me, than to say, oh, that could be maybe a little bit different, you know? Sometimes bluntness is better. You don't have to be disrespectful. Naturally, you shouldn't be. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't voice what's going on in your head. You just have to make sure that you're heard correctly. Which leads to the second strategy: listen actively, right? So active listening is about truly hearing, and active listening for me is not just hearing, it's also seeing the person. What is their physical being doing while they're communicating? Are their shoulders hunched? Are they do they look in my eyes? Can they, or are they avoiding? Are they smiling? All of those are cues that are there that we can read or listen to. The other part is the breathing part, right? As you said, you took a breath, you step back. So if I breathe freely while somebody's talking to me, even if they're telling me things I don't want to hear, I'm not building up energy. I let it go, because with the breath in, I center, with the breath out, I ground. And if I do that actively and deeply, I will be in a better place, listening with all the senses. So what does my gut tell me? What does my hearing, my smelling, my taste, is there anything connected to whatever they say? Will that make a difference? Be present. Don't play on your phone when somebody's talking to you, if they have something to say to you. And beware of your emotion. The emotion part, again, be that by telling or be that by listening, will totally affect what you receive or what you present. Like if I'm totally upset and I start bubbling and I cannot bring my point over, it's because my lens is like, I'm the wounded person that cannot communicate. If I stay neutral and I voice out, this has happened and this has hurt me because this happened, then it's clearer than, oh, by the way, I'm why, and all of that situation where you choke and can't say. And I don't say that it's easy, but if you put effort to it, then you can get to the point where it takes the stress out of the situation. Reflecting on the what and how is important from my perspective, because if I reflect on why a person said what to me, when, and how did they say it, I will again see the lens. I can pick up on more cues than just, oh, they said. I have more information at hand when I look back at it, and when I think about why would they react the way they do. So another nice quote that I found is, the most basic of all human needs is the need to be understood and understood. To understand and be understood. The best way to understand someone is to listen truly. And I find that all the time. If there's a misunderstanding, it's always because one side doesn't talk correctly, or the other side, or both, don't hear right. So communication is the key to going further. If you think about that situation that we had before, as a listener, just think about or reflect on, how did you feel at that time? What was going on in your body? Did you look at that person? Can reflect on that, like just a little bit, because if I go back into a situation where something like that happened, and I know that oftentimes my eyes don't stay with the person that's talking to me, or I start fidgeting, or my shoulders are getting really, really tight in the neck, and all of those are pointers that there's already a disconnect, and I'm not listening to them anymore. So bringing us back to listening actively. The next one, set boundaries. And that's part of that being German. I can set boundaries because boundaries are important for my safety. So when I go and say, my favorite thing when I talk to somebody about setting boundaries is the movie Dirty Dancing, where they do the dance and he says, "This is my space." And that's it. You're defining your space. You're defining what is okay for you, what is not. You're making clear this is a boundary that cannot be crossed, or that can only be crossed when you allow for it. It is to keep you safe, and it is also to keep you emotionally stable, because that boundary is the furthest you can go with the resources you have. And that gives you the chance to step into your boundary, keep everybody else out, take a breather, get back to yourself, and then face the outside again. That also means in a relationship to acknowledge those boundaries and stay out of them. When your wife goes into the next room and closes the door behind her, you don't have to follow and keep arguing. It means she needs her time and space. Same with the husband. Same with the kids. Sometimes we just need to get out of it and get back to normal. So I can call the other two back in, but I'm just gonna guide them and ask them to comment on that. If you are looking at close your eyes and reflect on a time where somebody was constantly in your face. How was it to communicate with that person? Was it easy? Did you feel offended? What did you do? If you are used to setting boundaries, you probably would have said, put your hand up and said, please leave me alone. But if you're not used to that, did you actually consider setting a boundary? Or can you see yourself setting a boundary now? And what does it feel like when you think about setting a boundary right now?
I would go a step back to find more space, to feel more comfortable. And if the person would follow me, I would go sideways and leave the area.
Would you voice that they're overstepping?
If I know the person, no, but if I don't know the person, I easily would say it, yes.
Why wouldn't you say it to a person that you know?
Because I don't want to hurt the person.
But the other person is okay to step into your boundaries.
No, normally not. But from my feeling, I wouldn't say it. It would be strange for me.
Yeah, but it's not about that you're hurting the other person or that you mean to hurt the other person. It's about keeping you safe. If you don't step up for yourself, nobody else does. Right? And you don't hurt anybody by saying, sorry, you're coming too close. Or I ask you to step back, I feel uncomfortable. You're not hurting somebody. You're just voicing your concern for yourself. And if somebody cannot, especially if it's a person that you know, if they can't accept you setting up the boundary to keep you safe, I don't know if I really would like to have people like that around me, honestly, because they're not respecting you while you're respecting them.
I never thought about it. I have no problems with strangers, but with friends or neighbors, I never thought about it.
Michelle is thinking.
I'm thinking, well, I too would step back and create space. And usually that's when I go quiet. They can say whatever they want, but I'm just going to let them finish whatever it is they need to finish. And I will just hold the space. And then that's usually the end of the conversation.
Yeah, but you are not voicing that they are not. Like, you know how those people come and come and come and come and you can do whatever you want and they come and then come. Do you put your hand up and say, stop? No?
I usually try to deflect it with humor.
And how effective is that for you?
They usually confuses them. Um,
That's a good one. Yeah, I know.
yeah, and that kind of takes them out of the trance of the conversation where they're at, takes them a minute, and that's usually enough for me to create the space I need without bringing anything up. And then I try to deflect with another idea.
Again, the thing is with boundaries, you have to communicate them, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you don't communicate them, the other person doesn't know there is a boundary. If you don't, and it doesn't matter if that's the hand in the face saying no, or if it's you saying, this is my space, please respect that. I depends on the person. I might go and say no, or I might go, I hear you. It is different for me, right? So I try to reason, get them to the point that they are heard, that they are acknowledged, but at the same time installing that I'm not agreeing with what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's again a part of, we can agree to disagree. We don't have to have the same opinion, but we have to agree to disagree, right? So a good fence makes a good neighbor. Yes, a good boundary does that, because it's clear where you're overstepping and where not. Strategy number 4, seek professional guidance. Sometimes seeking professional guidance can provide new insights and tools, and therapy can be a valuable resource for personal growth. You don't have to be by yourself, and the only thing that I can say to that is find a therapist or somebody else that can support you and that you can work with. Again, you have to follow the same rules for every relationship. So even for your therapist, the relationship to your therapist, same rules apply. Open communication, active listening, keeping boundaries, and not seeking professional guidance for seeking a professional guidance, because if you have to do that, then you're definitely with the wrong person. But making sure that you're comfortable with the person that you're dealing with, and that helps you. But that also means that they sometimes can tell you what you don't want to hear. You don't have to do it all alone. You were never meant to. And that's true. We're not solitary fighters. We are meant to be in community, having groups and organizations or whatever getting together. Relationships are part of our life. And I think the time during COVID has proved that quite a bit, how detrimental it is for humans not to be connected. They have to be in a safe way. Self-care. Self-care, self-care, self-care. I would say all of those before are already practicing self-care if you apply those. But then there's the other part. If you're already stressed, you know that, and you go home stressed, and you bring the stress into the house, find a way to release that before you get into your relationship, so your relationship doesn't have to carry that by itself. Go for a walk before you go home, listen to music, or establish routines for self-care where you can pull yourself out of the group, out of the house, to listen to music for an hour or whatever. Or that I have a rule when I have students that I train. I used to have that with my trainees. I would put a red dot on my forehead and I would say, don't talk to me. Just because I was in a state of mind where I couldn't have anybody around me questioning me the wrong way, I would have exploded. And I knew that by myself. So I knew how I was set up. And I made sure that the people that I had to deal with and that had to deal with me had a safety net, which meant my colleagues would take over the trainees. They knew the routine. And we never had any big issues due to that. And I can only recommend that in any relationship, set up your routines for, this is the case, then don't do. Or this is the case, then please do. Find a way together to create what you need to have the safety net. And self-care practice in that is also setting up your routines, setting up your cases, what happens when, setting up your boundaries. Like when I come home, I have a big stress day. Don't talk to me for the first 15 minutes. Leave me by myself. That is a routine. This is a boundary. This is clearly communicated. And if the other person hears you right, they will follow that. A well-balanced individual contributes positively to their relationship. Well-balanced means you know when you're off balance, and you need to know what you have to do in order to get back to it. Self-care is not selfish. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. Same thing. If you're not okay, your relationship might not be okay. Sorry. If you want to practice some partner activities, you can do that in the relationship with your partner. You can do that with your colleagues or whatever, team meetings, whatever you need to do. Communication. Sorry, oops, too fast. The communication exercises have a communication, and you can always play with it. Pretend not to listen or be distracted, and tie into what does that feel for you, what does it feel for the other person. And I feel, again, with feeling, I mean with all the 5 senses. So what comes to mind? How does it feel in your body? How is your neck? How is your tension? All of that. And then flip it around and listen actively. Eye contact. Nothing in your hands, for instance. Being open in your posture, like shoulders back. Actively communicating to the other person physically. I'm here. I'm listening. Check in with your breathing. All of that can help. And then just reflect together. How was it for one person? How was it for the other person? In both roles, the one that's talking, the other one listening, and vice versa. The boundary setting, again, create a boundary, and it can be just a pretend, but just for you to get the feeling of what does it feel like when I communicate a boundary to a partner correctly, and what does happen when I don't communicate it. So you can set for yourself a boundary saying he's not allowed to be within 2 meters of me or 2 feet of me, whatever you want to do, just for now. And then have the person overstep that boundary without them knowing. And then do the same thing with setting up a boundary, vocally telling them this is my boundary, and then have them step in. And again, just get a sense of what feels right, what feels wrong. Where does the tension go in your body? How is your breathing? Do you have a sound in your, like tinnitus, for instance, can be a stress reaction. So that could be the beeping in your ear could be a sign that you're already going into a stress mode. The other person can check in if they see the cue once the first person feels uncomfortable. Because often we ignore the signs that a person is not really comfortable with what we're doing. We just go ahead and do it anyway. Even so, the signs are all there, like their forehead is creased or their shoulders are all tight. They're clenching their teeth or whatever. So all of those signs are already there, can be seen, and we are just so used to ignoring them. Self-care challenge. Go with your partner. Pick up some self-care routines for you. Have them could pick some up, and then see what changes in your day-to-day life with each other. How is it differently to communicate? How is the first hello in the morning? The first hello after work? How is the nighttime when you have a dinner together? Are you having dinner together? All of those then all of a sudden can change. Fact is, you don't have to be stuck in burnout and in stress. There is ways out of it. And we have the tools. Some are small, some are big. Our partnerships and our relationships are the biggest part that are our support net. if you have a partner who knows you, who can see in your face that you're already stressed, they can be able to pull you out of it, and they will be able to take the load off you. The quality of your life ultimately depends on the quality of your relationships. That's true. If you have no good relationships, there's the next stress. If you're lonely, you have a big part of your life missing, and you have a big part of your support net missing. Some, like I, can feel that through friends and family, being parents, in my case. Others, you have a partner, you have kids. Is there a support net within your relations? Is there clear lines of structure? What happens when I'm in stress? What happens when they're in stress? Are there clear communications about what does it look like when I'm in stress? That's another part. We often don't communicate to others that I don't feel well. We just swallow it and we just bury it because we don't want to burden the other person. But with that burying and not talking about what's going on within you, it's already setting you up for failure because the other person doesn't know what's going on within you. And so they cannot do anything else but misstep. Michelle and Helga, do you have any more questions for me? If not, I'll put up my contact information.
Thank you so much, Natascha. No, I don't have questions. It was a great presentation. I
Thank
really
you.
liked it.
And I'd like to know what kind of programs people can participate in with you.
So I'm working right now. The relationship program will be soon a little bit bigger as a standalone workshop that people can then do by themselves and tie in when they have questions. But it's basically a work through with exercises that gonna be recorded. I'm working on a burnout workshop for people who are in burnout and stressed, not just focused on emergency professionals, but more on business professionals. The emergency professional will come later, and then there will be one for carers, because I don't like the word caregivers. We're not giving care, we're caring about people. And then there's my happiness journal, which I'm very proud of. I have a journal on my website that you can download for free. It's 7 days reflection on happiness, where you can just go in and look at all areas of your life and see where are you happy and where is it lacking, so you can make changes, because happiness is one of the biggest factors that we can have to prevent stress and burnout. That's it for now. There's lots of things coming. The podcast will be new. That's happening right now. We started recording and we hope to be live beginning of April. Having the
Beautiful.
first podcasts out.
That's
And
great.
that's all
Awesome.
ramblings. It's called ramblings about ramblings of a busy mind, because the burnout brain is never straight. It goes in all directions, which I do. And it's just a conversation between two people about all things that are happening in their life right now in relation to stress and burnout. Some are people who are sufferers. No, not sufferers, survivors. We have no sufferers. And some are professionals working in that area. So all kinds of things happening.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. Natascha, thank you so much for taking the
Thank you
time
very
and
much.
bringing this forward, and for the approach that you've taken to call it burnout and to face that piece of it, but then also to identify all of us are suffering from it in some way. And and the tips and tools that you gave us are really good to get us started. So thank you.
One of the biggest things that I find in people when there's burnout and stress is that the disconnect from the physical and the mental. You're so stuck in your head in the burnout that you ignore all physical information coming in, be that the taste, be that the hearing, visual cues, and we as energy workers through therapeutic touch, we learn to listen to the cues that come in, and we learn that energetic information doesn't come in just as the tingling in your fingers or the coldness or the warmth that you feel, you have a picture that comes to mind, anything that comes to mind basically, and that can be a taste or a sound or a smell too. And when you start listening to these, then you start listening to more information and you get a bigger picture of what's going on, which then allows you to respond instead of react.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Helga.